but there would be like actual suspense and thriller stuff happening and a lot of and just dark morbid shit too. So it'd be, yeah, you're right. Tarantino would totally be able to do something good with this. There's probably a handful of guys that would be able to treat this pretty well,
Yeah.
but that's a really good idea, man.
Okay, you've convinced me. I'm in. You raise the money. I'll start writing.
Okay, sure. Hello, fellow music fans out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy. That fellow over there is John. And today we are going to be doing what we do every day, try to take over the world. No, we are going to be listening to some music. Today is John's chance. That's right, for $1 million. John is going to be offering up something for me to go off and listen to. I'm going to do just that. And then we're going to come back and we're going to chop it up. John, what have you got in the chamber?
So it's one of our ongoing projects. Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
I swear to God, the last time we've done both, there's this weird connection between Nick Cave and PJ Harvey. And every time we do one, it seems like we're getting together and doing the other as well. So, and I know that there actually is this connection between them in real life, or there once was, right? But it's just funny that it's somehow mirroring how we attack our song choices on the channel. So, yeah, cool. What track by them will we be digging into?
This is the Ballad of Robert Moore and Betty Coltrane.
Okay. All right. Thinking of Roger Moore and what was it, John Coltrane? This is
Very different dynamics, those two.
yeah, yeah,
They were a
exactly.
couple as well. Yes, they were a couple, but very different.
Yes, yeah, inseparable for a few years they were, much like Nick Cave and PJ.
Him in his brown safari suit, and then there was Roger Moore as well. Yeah.
Well, what an interesting title. Let me go off and give this ballad a listen, and I will come back and let you know my thoughts. Piano is fun.
There's a thick-set man with frog eyes was standing at the door, and a little bald man with wingnut ears was waiting in the car. Well, Robert Moore passed the frog-eyed man as he walked into the bar, and Betty Coltrane, she jumped
Those
at
horns.
the table. What's your pleasure? Asked the barman. He had a face like boiled meat. There's a girl called Betty Coltrane that I have come to see. But I ain't seen that girl around here for more than a week. And Betty Coltrane, she hid beneath the table. Well, then in came a sailor with mermaids tattooed on his arms, followed by the man with a wingnut ears who was waiting in the car. Well, Robert Moore sensed trouble, he'd seen it coming from afar, and Betty Coltrane, she gasped beneath the table. Oh, well, the sailor said, I'm looking for my wife, they call her Betty Coltrane. And the frog-eyed man said, that can't be, that's my wife's maiden name. And the man with a wingnut ear said, hey, I married her back in Spain. And Betty Coltrane crossed herself beneath the table.
No, this isn't the intent, and I don't even think they sound alike, but for some reason I'm taken to the song Ballroom Blitz. It's like the man in the back said, everyone attack and turn into the ballroom. I don't know. I think it's just the narrative here and the description of this scene in a bar is just making my brain go to that weird place that I didn't expect it to go. God damn, he's such a good writer. He can spin a story. Like he's fitting a lot of exposition, and it's all connected. He has a hell of a way of describing human beings too, by the way. Like, I mean, whether you've got the eyes of an amphibian or wingnut ears. I mean, I guess being labeled as a guy with mermaid tattoos is the lesser of the evil of the other comparisons where you've got these, like, I wouldn't want to be known as the guy with the wingnut ears or the frog eyes. But God, it works so well. It's such a cool and interesting story, and there's this fun music that keeps everything moving. Oh man. Yeah, let's take it back a little bit.
Followed by the man with the wingnut ears who was waiting in the car. Well, Rabbit Moore sensed trouble, he'd seen it coming from afar. And Betty Coltrane, she gasped beneath the table.
She stays under that table.
The sailor said, I'm looking for my wife, they call her Betty Coltrane. And the frog-eyed man said, that can't be, that's my wife's maiden name. And the man with the wingnut ears said, hey, I married her back in Spain. And Betty Coltrane crossed herself beneath the table. Well, Rabbit Moore stepped up and said, that woman is my wife. And he drew a silver pistol and a wicked bowie knife. And he shot the man with a wingnut ear straight between the eyes. And Betty Coltrane, she moaned under the table. Oh, well, the frog-eyed man jumped at Rabbit Moore, who stabbed him in the chest. As Mr. Frog-Eyes died, he said, Betty, you're the girl that I love best. And the sailor pulled a razor, Robin blasted him to bits. And Betty, I know you're under the table. Well, I have no fear, said Rabbit Moore, I do not want to hurt you. I know a woman, did I love me half as much as you? You're the blessed son of me, girl, and you are the sacred moon. And Betty shot his legs out from under the table. Well, Rabbit Moore went down heavy with a crash upon the floor. And over to his thrashing body, Betty Coltrane, she did crawl. She put the gun to the back of his head and pulled that trigger once more. And blew his brains out all over that table. Well, Betty stood up and shook her head and waved the smoke away. Said, I'm sorry, Mr. Barman, to leave your place this way. And she emptied out their wallet. She said, I'll collect my severance pay. Then she winked and threw $1 on the table. Yeah.
Ooh, those keys. Love that organ. Right, another world is possible, I suppose. Oh man, yeah. I'm gonna say it again. The guy can fucking spin a tail. This was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Betty, you rascal. And she, I mean, it's this like Black Widow story where she's got several husbands. They're all kind of taking each other out. Well, really, they're all taken out in the long run. And I love this idea that she's like hiding beneath the table, but little do we all know that perhaps it's all part of her plan. Let them pluck each other off one by one and then take the last one standing and make your way out. She looted the corpses like I do in every RPG I've ever played. And he's leaves the barman $1 for for the troubles, which is disposing of like what, 3 corpses, probably some serious blood stains. I would imagine some broken furniture. This is wild, fun stuff. Really weird. Um, it's weird that this story is fun to me, I guess is what I'm saying. But hell, I mean, I've watched movies and read books that have similar kind of, themes in them. And this guy just does it to music, and he does it expertly well. Um, it's funny. These two I feel like are always connected. And I think John, this isn't the first time John has thrown me like a PJ Harvey and then relatively around the same time, throwing me some, some of this Nick Cave stuff too. And Harvey has this way of like being like opaque in her lyricism, where in not everything, but in a lot of the stuff we've done recently, where there's like room for interpretation and what does this mean or what does this represent. And I'm not saying Cave's incapable of that. There's plenty of examples, but in this instance, he's telling such a detailed story that you can see everything unfold in your mind's eye as if you're watching a film. Um, I mean, he's setting the mood, he's describing characters and building characters, and there's all this implied narrative between the characters that's going on that's led us to this scene. Really fun, interesting stuff. And the music was great. I mean, the horns, the organs, just the rollicking nature of it all. You could feel things kicking off, and the music does a great job of like complementing that or helping to create that. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Loved this tune. This is high up there for my Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds playlist. So yeah, let's go back and learn more with John.
Hey, Nonny Nonny, he's back. So, the Ballad of Roger Moore and John Coltrane, by 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 Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. What do you reckon?
We shouldn't play into that too much because I'm going to start saying the wrong names as I go through this. But yeah, the song begins with this lovely old fashioned kind of key flourish on the piano that is soon joined by this like rapidly clipped guitar plucking, and soon the piano turns to this punchy bit of staccato before it devolves into an almost disjointed bit of notation, and then cuts out. And this leaves just this chugging rhythm in its wake. And perhaps it's the visage of the man on my screen, but in my head, I can already hear Cave's voice spinning a narrative over this. And seconds later, lo and behold, Cave begins spinning a narrative over top of this chugging rhythm. So he describes a couple fellas, quite differing appearances. One is thick set with frog eyes, the other bald with wingnut ears. Uh, Excellent descriptors. Then the titular characters make their first appearance as Moore passes the man with amphibian eyes, and Betty jumps under the table, which, as we will come to find out, is her favorite place in the bar, at least on this night. This is occasionally accented by this fun burst of horn work that comes in that's really engaging, and you almost after the first time you hear it, you look forward to hearing it every other time it comes. Cave continues to his run of describing people in the most complimentary of ways, as we're introduced to the barman whose face is akin to boiled meat. Oh
Yeah.
man, what a ringing endorsement of a mug that is. God, you had the face of an old boiled ham hock. Um, and the verse, as
Not even roasted, boiled.
yeah,
It's going to be a
yeah,
bit
yeah, exactly.
slimy.
It doesn't even have some nice like coloring on it or anything. It's like, no, no, you are void of color. Your color has been removed from you. Um, so yeah, as this verse plays, the bass is adding this rumbly little undercurrent to the groove, and the horns continue their judicious pops. And soon the guitar accents all of this with these strummed chords in succession. So this is an odd thing for the old brain to do to me while listening to this, and you're probably gonna really roll your eyes. But you know how we have this penchant for when we're in the midst of hearing the song the other is offered to get these intrusive thoughts of songs that have absolutely fucking nothing to do with what we're listening to. You've fallen victim to this. I've fallen victim to this, and for some reason, I'm hearing this, and I'm reminded of the song "Ballroom Blitz," of all things. Do you know? Are you familiar with that track? I would imagine you probably are. It's an English tune,
It's
isn't it?
sweet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they teach it at school in this country.
yeah. I
Um,
thought so. We get Hot Cross Buns and you guys get Ballroom Blitz. So yeah, yeah. And the man in the back said, "Everyone attack and eternity." There's just all this hubbubaloo happening in a small area. So it's just, I don't know why, but it took me there. So I pushed that back into the recesses of my mind. Also, this is another example of how great this man is at telling stories through his lyrics. He fits a lot in and really paints a picture while also setting mood, complete with actual character building and vivid descriptions. You really become immersed in these little mini worlds that he creates in every song. Um, and it's interesting because I don't want to always bring up one when I'm bringing up the other, though at this point, this is probably the third time I'm bringing up Miss Harvey while discussing Nick. But we just listened to a song of hers, earlier today. It'll come out as its own episode. The piano, and there is in her way of writing. They're both really evocative lyrically, but hers is this less is more kind of approach to her lyricism that allows the mind to wander and do this Rorschach test when you hear certain words here and there, and you kind of she leaves the rest up to you to kind of piece it together how you will using just those few words. With Cave, in specifically in this song, I don't want to talk about him like this is always how he does it, but in this song, it's like such a specific narrative that no stone is left unturned. That it's basically cinematic in how the scene unfolds in your mind. You see everything before you. There is no wiggle room for interpretation or, even symbolism or any of these other mechanisms. It's just a really detailed tale. And I love both, these styles. But this is a lot of fun because you can kind of because he's really easy to discern, you can kind of just sit and listen and just experience it, not do all the Rubik's Cube of interpretation gymnastics that you might have to with a song like The Piano by PJ Harvey. So all that said, I love this. I really do. So, for those keeping track at home, the man with the wingnut ears caught one between the eyes, and the fellow with the eyes of a frog got done in the chest with a Bowie knife. And the tattooed sailor with mermaids on his arm was blasted to bits. All the while, Betty and maybe John Coltrane was under the table. So for a lot of this song, I'm thinking, okay, we got a classic case of a Black Widow here. She's been around and she's married a few guys, but I honestly thought that our hero in this track was Robert Moore, come to save her from these past characters, these seedy fellows from her history. But no, no, we shouldn't be fooled by Betty and her penchant for hiding when the shit has hit the fan. Because in an interesting turn of events, after Robert Moore committed a triple fucking homicide, he then tried to allay Betty's fears and sweet talk her out from under the table, but she wasn't having it and shot him in the legs, forcing him to the ground to writhe around, and then she finished the job by placing one in the back of his head. Now, I understand that you could easily infer that that only means that she has a horrible taste in men and a real fucking type she needs to get over, and that Robert was just one of these other cast of characters of shitty men that she's married or been, tied to in some way, shape, or form, and that's probably the case. Or they're all decent fellows that were done wrong by this one really awful woman, and they all want their revenge on her, and she gets the last laugh. Whatever the case is, it's fucking great. It's a fun story and it's interesting. And, I wish there was a movie made just about this song. And someone had a blast with it and just drew it out and made 90 minutes of fun out of it because I had such a lot of fun listening to this. She then, much like I do in any RPG video game I've ever played, loots all the corpses. And with her newfound, I don't want to call it a fortune, but I'm guessing that from these 4 wallets, she's extrapolated more than a ducat. But that's what she leaves the poor barkeep. for all the trouble that she and these now dead men have caused. I have to imagine with the amount of bloodletting, furniture's being turned over, stray bullet holes, and just the overall disruption of the rest of the patrons, that the cost would exceed 100 pennies or whatever cents or what do you guys call your coinage over there?
Pennies and pounds.
Oh, pennies. Oh, I thought I always assumed pounds were the dollar. But either way, whatever monetary system you're working on, the damage done here has to exceed a fucking dollar or a pound or whatever. So I just thought that made me laugh. Like, man, the chutzpah with this one.
Yeah.
To do all that and leave a dollar. Yeah, this was a lot of fun, man. He really packed a lot of exposition into this song with some stellar storytelling, lots of fun. Also, the organ that really became infectious towards the end as well as everything sort of came to a head. I loved that. So the music was great, lent itself perfectly to the story being told, or maybe the story being told lent itself to the music. I don't know the chicken or the egg here. Like whatever. I fucking loved the song, regardless of any of that. This was good stuff. And as my dog plays the toy behind me, I don't know if you're catching that on film, but enjoy that, folks. He too is a fan of the track. Yeah, this is a lot of fun, man. This is like up there for me in the Nick Cave stuff, just off sheer fun.
Yeah, yeah. It is a perennial fan favorite and is always in the mix when people mention their favorite Nick Cave and the Bad Seed songs.
Okay, that checks
This
out.
one trots out, which is quite impressive, really, because it's not that well known or wasn't.
I thought I saw something that said like B-sides or rarities or something like that. And I was
Exactly.
thinking, this is a motherfucker. This is a B-side. Like this shit
Yeah,
is
I haven't.
it's hit written all over it.
Yeah. So the Ballad of Robert Moore and Betty Coltrane was released as a B-side to the single Where the Wild Roses Grow, which was off the 1996 album Murder Ballads. Um, the Ballad of Roger and John, as we call it, was later released on the 2005 compilation B-sides and rarities, which is I mean, it was as a CD. It's three CDs. There is a vinyl release which I am getting soon. I think it's five, maybe six vinyl records. It's a behemoth. It's really good though. There's lots of
Yeah.
gold nuggets in there.
Of course.
And it was also then put on as extra tracks when they re-released Murder Ballads. So it's just a B-side, you know. And until they re-released the stuff, it was quite hard to or rare to get hold of. So there's not much about it. But I can give you what this sort of the state of the band, because obviously it was ever changing throughout the career, and this is sort of midpoint, I guess you'd call it. So for the album, Nick Cave, vocals, piano, organ, Hammond organ, and gunshots. Blixa Bargel's guitar, screams, and vocals on one of the tracks. Martin P. Casey bass. Mick Harvey drums, guitar, acoustic guitar, organ, wind organ, backing vocals, bass, Hammond organ, space belt, and percussion. Conway Savage piano, backing vocals, and organ. Jim Sklavounos drums, percussion, bells, tambourine, and Thomas Wilder maracas, drums, tambourine, and vocals. And they had some guest musicians on this album as well. So PJ Harvey vocals on two tracks.
Wow, how about
Kylie
it?
Minogue vocals on two tracks. Your man Warren Ellis, who would become a full member, violin and accordion on a track. Yeah, so the final track on the album, Death Is Not the End, features multiple vocals, and one of them is Mr. Shane McGowan.
Mm,
Yeah, bless
Green
him.
teeth
There's
and
actually
all.
footage of them singing away, and it's quite something. So yeah, it's an interesting album. It's not my favorite of theirs, but there's some decent tracks on there. Um, Most people, when they hear this, they cannot believe that this song was left off the album and only put on as a B-side to one of the singles because it matches the quality of any other track on the album. But it's a case of fitting in, I guess, in the overall vibe. I mean, this is a pretty rollicking up-tempo ballad, um, you know, and it's interesting because one, the woman doesn't get murdered, which is rare for a Nick Cave
Right.
ballad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
She got
I
the last
mean,
laugh.
yeah, it's quite amazing. And I think of the two scenarios you painted, I think it's the latter. She's almost this sort of murderous Captain Jack Sparrow type, quirky
Yeah.
sort of, here's your dollar and off across the tables and out the window, that sort of thing. But yeah, and the way he writes this, I mean, it's interesting you say this. I always thought that he's almost like Hemingway in the way he writes stuff. Every word carries its weight. It's
Yeah.
really precise and well chosen. But it makes it feel like it isn't, it's great. So, speaking of which, let's get into the lyrics.
Alrighty.
So, as you say, it starts with a piano flourish and then the bass and drums. There was a thick-set man with frog eyes who was standing at the door, and a little bald man with wingnut ears was waiting in the car. Well, Robert Moore passed the frog-eyed man as he walked into the bar, and Betty Coltrane, she jumped under her table. And then we get the guitar and the brass stabs. What's your pleasure? Asked the barman. He had a face like boiled meat. There's a girl called Betty Coltrane that I have come to see, but I ain't seen that girl round here for more than a week. Betty Coltrane, she hid beneath the table. And then we started getting the extra percussion. Well, then in came a sailor with mermaids tattooed on his arms, followed by the man with wingnut ears who was waiting in the car. Well, Robert Moore sensed trouble. He'd seen it coming from afar. And Betty Coltrane, she gasped beneath the table. And then we get these delightful keyboards, which is my favorite.
Yeah.
Bit. Well, the sailor said, I'm looking for my wife. They call her Betty Coltrane. The frog-eyed man said, that can't be. That's my wife's maiden name. And the man with the wingnut ear said, hey, I married her back in Spain. Betty Coltrane crossed herself beneath the table. Well, Robert Moore stepped up and said, that woman is my wife. And he drew a silver pistol and a wicked Bowie knife. And he shot the man with the wingnut ears straight between the eyes. And Betty Coltrane, she moaned under the table. We get these cymbal splashes. The frog-eyed man jumped up at Robert Moore, who stabbed him in the chest. As Mr. Frog Eyes died, he said, Betty, you're the girl that I love best. The sailor pulled a razor. Robert blasted him to bits. And Betty, I know you're under the table. Well, have no fear, said Robert Moore. I do not want to hurt you. Never a woman did I love near half as much as you. You are the blessed sun, girl, and you are the sacred moon. And Betty shut his legs out from under the table. And then we get the extra organ coming in. Well, Robert Moore went down heavy with a crash upon the floor, and over to his thrashing body, Betty Coltrane, she did crawl. She put the gun to the back of his head and pulled the trigger once more and blew his brains out all over the table. Well, Betty stood up and shook her head and waved the smoke away. Said, I'm sorry, Mr. Barman, to leave your place this way. As she emptied out the wallet, she said, I'll collect my severance pay. Then she winked and threw $1 on the table. Then they vamped to the end. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. I love
Yeah.
it. It's a lot of fun. It's not the most sort of complex musical stuff that he's done, but it's playful and it just fits the rhythm and the sort of, and it's quite a short song, really. It's only like 3 and change,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
A lot goes on in it, and it's just, there's no chorus, obviously, it's just narration. But yeah, it's wonderful, it's infectious, and it's in my top 10, if not 5, Nick Cave songs. I adore this. It's just fun, as you say.
Yeah. It seems rightfully placed, in my opinion. This is, and again, the 3.5 minute-ish timestamp to get all of this exposition in all of these verses to so eloquently and detailed orientedly to sort of paint this picture is like, that's just like you said, the how he uses his words so expertly to not for the listener to not miss any detail. And he does it in a really I don't know, almost it's almost like a gymnast to be able to pull it off. So yeah, hats off.
And economic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good shit.
As you mentioned there in your comments, if you scroll down the comments to any of the videos of this on YouTube, there'll be at least 3 or 4 people saying when they're going to make a film of this. And, it is, and I just think you could take probably half a dozen of his songs and make them all into little sort of mini series and have a Nick Cave anthology series. It would be sort of half-hour episodes at the very, at least.
Yeah.
And that would be a really cool thing to do. It would be
Oh yeah.
atmospheric and brooding, and it'd be kind of Tarantino in a way.
Yeah, because there would
A
be,
lot of it.
you could totally inject dark humor into it, probably pretty easily. But there would be like actual suspense and, thriller stuff happening and a lot of, and just dark, morbid shit too. So it'd be, yeah, you're right. Tarantino would totally be able to do something good with this. There's probably a handful of guys that would be able to treat this pretty well.
Yeah.
But that's a really good idea, man.
Okay, you've convinced me. I'm in. You raise the money. I'll start writing.
Okay, sure, sure. Uh,
Great. All right. I shall wrap things up. Thanks for listening, somebody. I'm
you.
glad you enjoyed it as much as I did. It would be hard not to be fair.
Yeah.
Folks out there, tell us what you think. Please hit the like button if you like this. Drop your comments. I'd love to hear from you what you think on this song, how it fits in with the rest, this album as well. Love to hear from you and all your opinions. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And perhaps together we can stop another massacre by finally hunting down Betty Coltrane masquerading as John Coltrane. That being said, thanks so much for watching. I will see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
We'll see you later, guys.